What's going on, YouTube family? It's Andrea and Emily here at VW Family Farm, and we are going to share another family recipe with you today for Thanksgiving. So this is probably Tuesday when you're watching this video. We are doing some prep work to make Thanksgiving not as busy. So you could actually do what we're going to show you right now, the first step today, which is Tuesday, or you could do it even tomorrow and make Thursday a lot easier on yourself. So we are going to be showing you how to make what? Dressing. So in our family, the whole Thanksgiving meal seems like it's centered around dressing. That's what everyone is ready to eat.
A big pan of it every year.
My mom is pretty well known for her dressing, and she learned it from her family. All makes that same dressing. It's delicious. I didn't know people made it any other way until I was like grown. So I am letting the secret out today on exactly how she makes it. It turns out good every time, and it's pretty simple. So the first thing today is we're gonna make a pan of cornbread, and we're gonna make some freezer biscuits. So my mom actually came up with this freezer biscuit recipe as well, and it's something she and I have been making for a few years now. It's easy. You make them and obviously pop them in the freezer, and then you've made your own frozen biscuits like you would buy for like a convenience food at Walmart or something. You've made them homemade. You just pop them out for a quick breakfast and cook them. They're really good. But for years, let me give a disclaimer, she used canned biscuits. So if that's all you have time to do this year, don't beat yourself up. It'll work just fine with canned biscuits too. So you're gonna get a couple different recipes today. You're gonna get the dressing recipe, but you're also gonna get the freezer biscuit recipe, and I'm gonna try to give you some tips and tricks along the way. The first being, this is just plain old cornmeal. And the cornbread my mom has always made, which that's what Emily's doing here, she's fixing to start making it, is just the plain cornbread recipe off the cornmeal mix package. Well, I don't usually keep cornmeal mix in my pantry. I just don't. I just keep cornmeal, and then I do whatever I want to with that. Well, you in minutes can turn cornmeal into cornmeal mix. So that's the first thing we're gonna do. Emily's gonna measure out for every 2 cups of cornmeal, you need a tablespoon of baking powder. So she's gonna do that. This is actually 3 cups, so she's putting in a tablespoon and a half in here. And also for every 2 cups of cornmeal, you need half a teaspoon of salt. So again, I'm using 3 cups because I'm doing a recipe and half of cornbread. So I'm gonna use 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And I will put this in the description, the recipe for the cornbread, and also the recipe for how to make cornmeal into cornmeal mix. Okay, so all we need is this cornmeal mix. Emily's gonna whisk this together. Okay, while she's whisking that together, I'm gonna put a good little amount of oil in a 12-inch cast iron skillet. So this is just olive oil. There's no exact science on how much to put in there. I would say a couple tablespoons. This is a big skillet. Now the recipe is actually 2 cups cornmeal mix, which to make the cornmeal into the cornmeal mix, you would add a tablespoon baking powder, half teaspoon salt, 1.5 cups of milk, and 2 eggs. That's all that's in this. But I am making a recipe and a half. That recipe is for a 10-inch skillet. I'm using a 12. So I'm just gonna give a splash of this in there, get the milk and eggs mixed in, and we'll be ready to move on. Also, while you're doing this, you wanna have your oven heating up to 425. Okay, so we preheated our skillet with the oil in it, and we are gonna finish up this cornbread. All right, Emily's gonna crack 3 eggs in this bowl. We've got our cornmeal mix here. So remember, I'm making a recipe and a half of what is gonna be down in the comments for the original cornbread recipe. So it's 3 cups of the cornmeal mix. Emily's putting 3 eggs in here. She's gonna whisk those a little bit, and then we're gonna put 2.25 cups of milk. We're gonna blend this together and get it baking in our skillet at 425 for about 20 to 25 minutes. And then we're gonna work on those biscuits while the cornbread's cooking. Okay, so we're gonna combine the milk and eggs and cornmeal mix. Okay, so you're just gonna get that mixed up good. There's no exact science. Now the skillet's hot and the oil in it's hot. We're gonna dump our mixture in there and pop it in the oven. All right, while that cornbread's cooking, I'm gonna show y'all how to make freezer biscuits. These are good any time of the year, and they're gonna be really good in this dressing. So let's get started. These are pretty easy. I do them in the KitchenAid mixer. I do a lot of things in the KitchenAid. So I'm gonna show y'all things as I add them, and this is pretty simple, so let's get going. Okay, first thing is I've got the dough hook on here. I use this thing for everything. Comes with most standard KitchenAids, and that's what I'm gonna use. I've got 2 cups of flour. I'm gonna add all my dry ingredients first, mix those, and then add the wet ingredients. I'm gonna add 4 teaspoons baking powder to this. I'm gonna give that a little stir just to get the dry ingredients mixed together. Nobody wants a big bite of baking powder. And then I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of lard, or whatever you choose. Butter, oil, something like that, 1/2 cup. And 3/4 cup of milk. Buttermilk is really good in these. A little bit sour raw milk, not sour store-bought milk because that's not good for you, but raw milk that's soured is good. We're gonna mix these until they come together in a good dough. You may have to scrape the sides of the bowl down a time or two, but it's super simple. Okay, so you can see this dough came together really good. Sometimes you might have to add an extra tablespoon of water. Just whatever you need to do, or if you got it too runny, add a tad more flour. All right, so I'm gonna roll these out between 2 pieces of parchment paper because it makes cleanup a whole lot easier. Okay, so I'm just gonna put the ball of dough between these 2 pieces of parchment paper, and I'm gonna roll it out. You don't wanna roll it super thin, but maybe like an inch thick. I don't know exactly. You'll just figure out how you like your biscuits the best. This amount of dough should make about 10 biscuits. A lot of times when I'm in the mode of making them, I will do this recipe like 4 times and make 40 just to stock the freezer for mornings that we need a quick breakfast. We don't eat biscuits that much, but it's nice to have them on hand for just something quick to pop in the oven, and it's still a whole lot better than going out to eat. I know biscuits are not like the health food of choice, but still a lot better than going and grabbing fast food or donuts or something. Okay, so I got them rolled out. Now I'm just gonna use, this is an old-fashioned biscuit cutter that I found at a flea market. I'm just gonna cut some. These are actually a little bit thin, but I'm just making these into dressing, so I'm not concerned with it. I would have probably left them quite a bit thicker had I really been making biscuits to eat for breakfast. Okay, I wound up actually rolling them a little thin, so I just doubled them up like layered biscuits you buy at the store. I'm gonna let them bake like that. I'm gonna bake these at 450 for 15 minutes. If you were making these actually for freezer biscuits, you'd just pop them in the freezer just like this and pull them out and bake however many you want at the time. Okay, so it's actually the next day. We baked our cornbread and biscuits last night. That's fine, or you can do it the morning of. It really doesn't matter. So the first step, this is super easy. We're just gonna throw it all together. We have got our hands clean, and we are just gonna start pinching these biscuits up, just crumbling them up. And then we're gonna get this cornbread out of here, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna crumble it all up in this pan. So we're just gonna crumble this cornbread up just like the biscuits. Okay, the next step, we got the cornbread and biscuits all crumbled together. They should just crumble right up, especially if they're a day old. That makes them kind of a little more stale, which is a good thing in this case. Now we're gonna cut up about 1/2 of a bunch of celery and a large onion. This is a loose measurement. If you want more celery or more onion, go right ahead. So Emily's gonna start getting that chopped up, and we're just gonna toss all that in. You're looking for about a couple cups of each, so that's a loose measurement for you, but a lot of dressing is to taste, so you're gonna have to just use your own judgment. Okay, so while she is chopping, I'm gonna add in the other ingredients, and I'm gonna add in 4 eggs for this size batch. Okay, we're also going to do salt, pepper, and sage. And this is all gonna be to taste. You're gonna wanna salt this quite a bit because this is a big pan. You can for sure cut this recipe down if you want to, but you're gonna need to do this kind of just to taste. You know how salty and peppery you like things. I'm using dried sage leaves. You can use sage that's more of a powder that you would get in the spice section at the grocery store, and you'll see dressing is kind of a darker color. That just means they added more sage. So just kind of use your family's preference on that. I'm just going to wing it, and I'll tell you, my mom, I know this has raw eggs in it, but she just kind of tastes it after she gets it mixed up.
And Charlie likes it brown.
Yes.
Oh, I'm crying. It burns.
So I probably actually wound up using 1/3 of a cup or maybe 1/2 a cup of dried sage leaves. Now this is actually from As Your Standard. It's dried sage leaves. There's a lot of air to this. This is not a fine powder. So I definitely would not add that much of the fine powder you get from the store. Okay, my helper started crying from the onions. So we've got, and I think I'm about to.
It burns.
So we've got our celery, our onion, our salt, pepper, sage, and eggs in here. Now the last ingredient is broth of any kind you want. It can be the broth that you cooked off your turkey. I'm gonna actually be using chicken broth today. Again, you're gonna have to use your own judgment. The wetter you get it in this step is how moist it will be when you're done. If you want a dressing that you actually have to like slice and cut into pieces, you're gonna wanna put less. But if you like a more moist spooning dressing, which is what our family prefers, we put quite a bit. And you gotta think this is bread down in here, so it's gonna soak up quite a bit of this. And then I'm actually not baking this today. I'm waiting a couple days, so I may actually add some more when it gets time to bake it, so it's good and soupy, because the eggs in there as well are gonna help hold it together when it bakes. So it's gonna come together really no matter how soupy you get it. You may just have to cook it a little bit longer to cook off some of the broth. So I probably added 1.5 quarts or possibly even 1/2 gallon at that point. But that may not even be enough. But again, a lot of this is personal preference on how moist you like your dressing. Okay, so we are mixing all this up, and I don't think we have enough broth yet, and that's all the broth I had. So I'm gonna add some extra just plain water to it because it's pretty rich as it is with all the chicken broth I've added. So again, just add whatever you think you need. All right, so you can see I added some more water. It's pretty soupy at this point, but that's good because that bread is going to sit and soak that up. I'm not baking it today. It's gonna be a couple days, so I will show you when I pull it out of the fridge in a couple days how thick it is then. Emily, give it a stir and show how thin it is so people kind of know. You can see that's pretty thin, but I'm gonna show you how much it's gonna thicken over the next couple days. Okay, when you're ready to cook it, preheat your oven to 350, and I want to show you what it looks like. So as you can see, it's thickened up quite a bit, so it's not going to have all that liquid to cook off, but it is going to have some. It's a little liquidy. So we're going to pop it in the oven at 350, and we're just going to keep an eye on it. All right, so that's it. It's pretty easy. It took about an hour to bake at 350. You can take it out as soon as it is set enough for you. If you like a really moist dressing that you spoon, you're not gonna wanna cook it as long. Or if you like one that's really set that you have to almost cut, you're gonna wanna cook it a little bit longer. You cook it uncovered, I guess you saw. And so that's all there is to it. I hope you make this. I hope it's delicious. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I will see you guys later. God bless.